Over the last 30 weeks, these 96 contenders have faced the ultimate test of nerve and knowledge. They have sat in this black chair and faced the spotlight, knowing the clock allows no second chances. After more than 4,000 questions, 90 of them have fallen by the wayside. But in an hour's time, one of these 6 who remain will be able to say, "I am a Mastermind champion." This is the grand final. First in the spotlight tonight is Michael Taylor, an historian from Oxford. He's answering questions on the major golf championships. Next, Brian Chesney, a retired librarian from Worcestershire, on the Revolt of the Netherlands. Khan Nagendra is a GP from West Sussex, and his subject, the Hannibal Lecter novels. Next, Ben Holmes, a customer service advisor from Salford, who's answering questions on amendments to the American Constitution. Ken Morland is an energy analyst from Brechin. His subject, Indian Premier League cricket. And Alfred Williams, a curator from East Yorkshire. His subject, Hadrian's Wall. Hello and welcome to the Mastermind Grand Final with me, John Humphrys, and our 6 finalists, well used to the pressure of the black chair and the spotlight, but this really is different. One of them will soon be the owner of this magnificent bowl made by Dennis Mann, as they all have been since Mastermind began in 1972. And, of course, they will be able to claim the title of Mastermind champion. That's pressure. The rules, of course, are the same. 2 minutes of questions on their specialist subject and then 2.5 minutes on general knowledge. So let's get on with it and ask our first finalist to join us, please. And your name is?
Michael Taylor.
Your occupation?
Historian.
Your specialist subject?
Major championship golf since 1997. I'm at the old course at St Andrews, where the Open Championship has been played regularly for more than 140 years. It's a part of golfing history, and I really can't wait to get out onto the course myself. Over the last decade, really, the majors have become the major part of my sporting calendar, and to be able to study them for the final of Mastermind is an absolute pleasure. The road hole bunker in the 17th year St Andrews could have been designed by Satan himself. No matter how big your lead, you need to get past it.
Now, I wonder if Tiger will do something a little bit magical.
In 2000, Tiger Woods won all 4 major championships in a row, and one of those titles came here at St Andrews. The American David Duval was challenging Tiger for the lead. Then he found the road hole bunker.
Oh.
He took 4 shots to get out. Game over. No, time to give up now, I think. My next treat is actually getting into the Royal and Ancient Golf Club, and even better, I'm going to see the Claret Jug, which is the trophy presented to the champion golfer of the year, and this is a real privilege.
There you go.
But it is magnificent.
What's your particular era that you're interested in?
So I'm doing 1997 to the present.
Okay.
You know, the Tiger Woods era.
There will be some names here that you'll recognise then if you want to have a closer look.
There are indeed. Clark and McIlroy, and I see Fred Daly here as another Northern Irishman. Hopefully a few more will add their names over time.
You never know.
Yeah, and no better place to win it, of course, than here.
At St Andrews, at the home of golf.
I have been on a quiz show before.
Hello, I'm Michael. I'm from Ballymena in Northern Ireland, and I'm studying for a PhD in history.
My friends and I reached the final and won the final of University Challenge in 2015. I'm not sure it prepared me all that well for Mastermind. You have to sit on a black chair under a spotlight.
And your name is?
Michael Taylor, so this might even be harder. To win the grand final of Mastermind would be an immense privilege. Maybe this is the Quiz World's equivalent of winning the Open Championship.
2 minutes on major golf championships starting now. Tiger Woods won his 14th and most recent major title in 2008 at which tournament?
US Open.
Yes, who became the first player to shoot a round of 62 at a major tournament? It was during the 2017 Open at Royal Birkdale.
Brandon Grace.
Yes, who won the Masters in 2003? He became the first left-hander to win the green jacket and the first Canadian to win a golf major.
Mike Weir.
Yep. What was the nationality of the top 12 finishers at the 1997 US PGA Championship?
American.
They were. What course in Tulsa, Oklahoma is the only venue to have hosted both the US Open and the US PGA Championship since the turn of the millennium?
Southern Hills.
Yes. Since 1997, European players have only once won 3 majors in a calendar year when Rory McIlroy won both the Open and the PGA Championship and Martin Kaymer won the US Open. Which year was it?
2014.
Yes. Who won the Silver Cup given to the lowest-scoring amateur to make the cut at the Masters in 1999? 18 years later, he won a long-awaited first major at Augusta.
Garcia.
Yep. Since 1997, Tiger Woods and which other golfer are the only players to have retained one of the major titles?
Harrington.
Yes. Who was tied in third place at the end of the third round of the 2003 Open when he was disqualified after he signed for the wrong score?
Mark Rowe.
Yes. Y.E. Yang was ranked 110th in the world when he became the first Asian player to win a major championship in 2009. What's his nationality?
South Korean.
Correct. In 2010, who became the first golfer from the United Kingdom to win a major title in the 21st century?
Graham McDowell.
Yes, since the year 2000, only Carnoustie and one other course have hosted the Open on a single occasion. Which course?
Ross.
No, Turnberry. A par on the final hole of the 2006 US Open at Winged Foot would have been enough to secure which golfer a first major victory?
Colin Montgomery.
Yes. The US Open remains the only major that Phil Mickelson has not won. How many times has he finished as the runner-up?
6.
Yep. Between 1997 and 2007, the PGA Championship was won only twice by a non-American. Who triumphed on both of these occasions in 1998 and 2004?
Vijay Singh.
Is correct. Michael, no passes. You have scored 14 points. And our next finalist, please. And your name is?
Brian Chesney.
Your occupation?
Retired librarian.
And your chosen subject?
The Revolt of the Netherlands, 1568 to 1609. The Dutch Revolt, in 40 years, turned a group of poverty-stricken rebels into a great worldwide empire. The Dutch Revolt is important because it inspired others. The American Declaration of Independence in 1776. It's one of the inspirations for the French Revolution. It's one of the inspirations for all revolutions and wars of independence right up to the present day. It's amazing to be here. I'm at the Prinsenhof Museum at Delft in the Netherlands, the home and the headquarters of William the Silent, Prince of Orange, where he led his rebellion against the King of Spain. It's one of the most extraordinary achievements in the whole of human history. Wow, that is a picture and a half. It shows on the left-hand side, sitting on the throne, the Duke of Alba, who was appointed by Philip II of Spain to crush the Dutch rebels once and for all. Alva intended to have a total control over the entire Netherlands. That was the plan. There was always resistance of a certain amount, but not very much. They needed a leader, and the only leader was William of Orange. Always known as William the Silent, not because he never said anything, but because he was reluctant to give his real opinions. William was the man who inspired the revolt. He issued a proclamation to the people calling on them to rise, which they did. Philip thought the only way to crush the revolt was to have William killed. And so he put a price on his head, and an assassin came to this very place and murdered him. Well, these are the fatal bullet holes. This was the first time in history that anybody had been assassinated with a concealed handgun. And Queen Elizabeth knew that she was the next on Philip's list. And that was ultimately the cause of her deciding to intervene with an army to support the Dutch rebellion against Philip. How often do you get to sit in the exact place where some great historical event has taken place? It's very unusual and very moving in a way. I enjoy studying history, and particularly this period. 16th and 17th century is really my period. I don't know why, but I have an affinity for it somehow. When I was in the Mastermind final a few years ago, I lost simply on number of passes.
Second place, 25 points and 4 passes, Brian Chesney. First place, 25 points, 1 pass, Clive Dunning. Commiserations to Brian, but it means, of course, that Clive Dunning is the Mastermind champion.
I've applied for Mastermind twice, I've reached the final twice, I only just failed the first time. Surely this time I'm going to do it.
Two minutes on the Revolt of the Netherlands, starting now. Which nobleman was executed in 1568 alongside the Count of On? It was one of several events that led to the Revolt of the Netherlands against the Spanish.
Egmont.
Yes. In what battle of July 1568 did the Duke of Alva rout the forces of Louis of Nassau, the brother of William the Silent?
Jemmingen.
Yes. Which town was the first to be captured by the rebel pirates who were known as the Sea Beggars in April 1572?
Brill.
Yep. What event of August 1572 in Paris ended the possibility of French intervention on the side of the Dutch rebels?
St Bartholomew's Day Massacre.
Yes. In which town did the States of Holland recognise William the Silent as the stadholder or governor of Holland, Zeeland and Utrecht at a meeting in July 1572?
Dordrecht.
Yes. Which Italian general masterminded the Spanish reconquest of the southern Netherlands after he became the governor-general in 1578?
Parma.
Yep. Parma built a fortified bridge of boats over a river to blockade the city of Antwerp that forced it to surrender through starvation. Which river?
The Scheldt.
Yes. In which city did the states of Hainaut, Artois and Walloon-Flanders form a union in 1579 to become reconciled with Philip II?
Arras.
Yes. In what city did the Count of Renenberg conspire to lead a revolt in March 1580 against the Calvinist North?
Utrecht.
Groningen. Which Dutch leader became the pensionary of Rotterdam in 1576 and rose to prominence after William the Silent's murder in Delft?
Oldenbarnevelt.
Yes. By a treaty, Queen Elizabeth of England agreed to provide aid to the Dutch rebels under the command of Robert Dudley, the Earl of Leicester. What treaty?
None such.
Yes. At what battle of January 1578 did the army of the governor, Don Juan of Austria, rout the States Army?
Jean Bleu.
Yep. What is the name of the Genoese millionaire who provided the finance that enabled the Spanish army to capture Ostend in 1604?
Spinola.
Yes. What name is given to the truce signed by representatives of Spain and the Netherlands in Antwerp in 1609 that ended the first phase of the war between the countries?
Eternal Peace.
12 years truce. Which poet, philosopher and engraver escaped from arrest by Alva's forces and became the leading spokesman for libertinism or toleration in the Dutch Republic?
Coenhert.
Is correct. Brian, no passes. You have scored 13 points. And our next finalist, please. And your name is?
Carl Nagendra.
Your occupation?
GP.
And your specialist subject?
The Hannibal Lecter novels. This is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where they filmed many of the scenes for Jonathan Demme's 1991 adaptation of Thomas Harris's second Lecter novel, The Silence of the Lambs. It fascinated and scared me, and I really wanted to know more about the characters and the stories. So I read the original books avidly, and that's why those novels are forming my specialist subject on the grand final. The producers of the movie reportedly chose Pittsburgh and the outlying Pennsylvania state because of the contrast between its architecture and landscape. Thomas Harris manages to create those images through his writing, and that's one of the reasons that I love his books. This is the Soldier and Sailors Memorial Hall, but it's more familiar to fans of the film as the Shelby County Courthouse, where Hannibal makes his gory and spectacular escape. Harris wrote 4 books in the Hannibal Lecter series, and Silence of the Lambs was the second. After the movie, the books became a huge success, and the third instalment, Hannibal, hit the bestsellers list.
Good evening, Clarice.
I thought you might like your drawings back, Doctor.
For the final, I've got 4 books to study. In previous rounds, I did films, which are much easier. They're only 2 hours long, and you can watch them multiple times. These books are very dense, full of information, and I'm constantly thinking, is this a possible question? The novels feel much more real, having seen what I've only imagined in my head or seen on film. How do I feel about the final? I'm still as nervous as I was before, but in some ways I'm looking forward to it.
Two minutes on the Hannibal Lecter novels, starting now. In The Silence of the Lambs, what's the name of the serial killer Buffalo Bill's champagne-coloured poodle?
Precious.
Yep. In Red Dragon, what nickname did the police and media give to the serial killer, who's eventually identified as Francis Dollarhide?
The Tooth Fairy.
Yes, in Hannibal, the FBI's field office for Washington, D.C. is known by what name? It's derived from a gathering of vultures at a Civil War hospital on the site.
Buzzard's Point.
Yep, Clarice Starling was sent by her mother to live on a sheep and horse ranch when she was 10. In which American state is the ranch?
Montana.
Yep. Lecter tells Clarice to visit the National Gallery in Washington and look at a Titian painting before they send it back to Czechoslovakia. Which painting?
Pass.
What is the name of the Verger family's mansion near the Susquehanna River in northern Maryland?
Muskrat Farm.
Yep. In Hannibal Rising, what type of ancient weapon that had been used by Hannibal the Grim against the Teutonic Knights is reassembled by Mr. Yakov Lothar and burnt on Lecter's birthday?
Pass.
What is the name of the leader of Mason Verger's gang of Sardinian kidnappers who had the habit of chewing the gristle off a pair of stag's teeth he kept in the pocket of his vest?
Carlo de Gracia.
Yes, Lecter tells Senator Martin that Buffalo Bill's real name is Billy Rubin and that he claimed to have once suffered from a disease common to knife makers. Which disease?
Elephant ivory anthrax.
Correct. In Red Dragon, Lecter replies to a fan letter from the Tooth Fairy by leaving a coded personal ad. In what newspaper?
The National Tatler.
Yep. In The Silence of the Lambs, Special Agent Jack Crawford is the head of which section of the FBI based at Quantico?
Behavioural science.
Correct. What is the name of Lecter's mentor and supervisor at medical school in Paris, who required each of his students to write a letter to the anonymous cadaver he would dissect?
Professor Dumas.
Yes. In Hannibal, what is the name of the drug dealer who is carrying a baby and shoots Clarice through the ear? Stalin returns fire and kills her.
Evelda Drumgo.
Correct. What name does Lecter use when he checks in at the Marcus Hotel in St. Louis after his escape from police custody and The Silence of the Lambs?
Lloyd Wyman.
Yes. At the end of Hannibal Rising, Lecter has begun an internship at which medical centre in America?
Johns Hopkins.
Is correct. You had 2 passes. The type of ancient weapon that had been used by Hannibal the Grim was a catapult, and the title of that Titian painting was The Flaying of Marsyas. You have scored, Kyle, 13 points. And our next finalist, please. And your name is?
Ben Holmes.
Your occupation?
Customer Service Advisor.
And your chosen subject?
US Constitutional Amendments. The US Constitution is the document that the US is governed by. It sets the laws of the land, it sets the rights of individuals, and it sets the powers on the government as well. Although the First Amendment passed in 1791, 74 years later the 13th was passed, which abolished slavery, with little help from Abraham Lincoln. over the moon. It's a cliche, but it's true. To actually stand here in Washington, the Lincoln Memorial is a huge deal to me. I'm a huge admirer of Lincoln, American history in general, but to actually stand here is a dream come true. It really is. I can't quite put it into words, as you can probably tell. My two great passions are American politics and history, and I'm about to meet a man who has lived and breathed both for the past few years. I've watched him for many hours, covering elections, debates, the inner workings of the American political system, and he's a former Mastermind contestant himself. Over 200 years, there have only been 27 amendments. Why, in your opinion, is that the case?
Well, I think the founding fathers who drew up the US Constitution were brilliant. I mean, they wanted to describe what the limitations of the state should be, what the powers should be. Look, laws have been changed. The Supreme Court plays a vital role, but it is still a living, breathing document that is relevant today.
So you're an old hand at Mastermind, John. Any tips for me?
You've somehow got to stay calm and not let your brain go into mental freefall when that nasty man, John Humphrys, is staring you an icy stare. Goodness knows how you do it, though. Very good luck. I hope it goes really well.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, enjoy it.
I'll try my best. I wouldn't consider myself a typical Mastermind contestant. I don't think you imagine someone who works in a call centre. But the beautiful thing about Mastermind is it's not about what you are, what you do, it's about what you know. And I feel comfortable that I know enough to win this competition.
Two minutes on constitutional amendments. Here we go. Which of the founding fathers introduced his proposed Bill of Rights to the House of Representatives in June 1789?
Madison.
Yes, after the ratification of the 18th Amendment, which introduced prohibition, there was a period of grace before intoxicating liquors became illegal. How long was it?
1 year.
Yes, the 19th Amendment in 1920 granted women the right to vote. Which member of the Tennessee General Assembly provided the state's final vote to ratify it?
Pass.
When Gerald Ford succeeded Spiro Agnew as Vice President after his resignation in 1973, an amendment that deals with the mid-term replacement of a President or Vice President was in vogue for the first time. Which amendment?
25th.
Yes. Which Virginian politician first proposed a Bill of Rights when he acted as one of his state's delegates to the September 1787 Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia?
Mason.
Yes. Which amendment, ratified in December 1933, was the first to directly repeal all the provisions of a previous amendment which regulated the sale of alcoholic beverages?
21st.
Yes. The 27th Amendment concerning the salary of members of Congress was first proposed in 1789, but was not ratified until what year?
1992.
Correct. Which charge imposed by some states as a prerequisite to voting was removed by the 24th Amendment?
Poll tax.
Yes. The 26th Amendment lowered the voting age for both state and national elections. To what age?
18.
Yep. What was the title of the 1939 Supreme Court decision that involved a Second Amendment challenge to the National Firearms Act of 1934?
Wilson v. Connecticut.
No, US v. Miller. How many proposed amendments to the Constitution did the Senate return to the House for final consideration after initially debating the Bill of Rights in 1789?
12.
Yes, the 7th Amendment provided for the right to a jury trial if the amount concerned in the case exceeded a certain sum of money. How much?
$20.
Yes, the 13th and 14th Amendments overturned a legal decision of 1857 when a slave unsuccessfully sued for his freedom. What was the case called?
Dred Scott.
Yes. Which state was the first to ratify the Bill of Rights in November 1789?
Virginia.
New Jersey. And you had one pass. That member of the Tennessee General Assembly who provided the state's final vote to ratify the 19th Amendment was Harry Byrne. Oh. You have scored, Ben, 11 points.
Thank you.
And our next finalist, please. And your name is?
Ken Morland.
Your occupation?
Energy analyst.
And your chosen subject?
Indian Premier League cricket. This is Kolkata, and this is Eden Gardens, the biggest cricket stadium in India. Playing host to many matches in the Indian Premier League, the greatest cricket extravaganza on earth. IPL cricket is like nothing else. No no gentle applause at a neat defensive shot. This is the crash bang wallop of the big shots. Visiting the Kolkata Cricket and Football Club is exciting for any cricket fan. This is the oldest club outside of England, and it's an absolute gem. Standing here, I get a feeling for the heritage and culture of cricket in Kolkata and across India. I feel very privileged to be here.
And you have 9 points to start with, Ken.
I think it's fair to say that I'm utterly shocked to have got this far. Utterly shocked.
Which means, of course, that Ken goes through to the final, the grand final.
And yeah, even right now, I still can't really believe it. This ordinary guy from Brechin, who has had a bit of a rough couple of years, somehow manages to get through to the final of Mastermind. I'm so proud to be in the final. I've got 1 in 6 chance. I can't think any further than that. I'm glad I'm there though.
Indian Premier League cricket in 2 minutes, starting now. Who scored the competition's fastest century off just 30 balls for the Royal Challengers Bangalore against the Pune Warriors in April 2013?
Chris Gayle.
Yep. Which team has appeared in 6 IPL Grand Finals in the 8 seasons it's taken part in the competition to date?
Chennai Super Kings.
Yep. The 2009 tournament was transferred to South Africa because of security issues in India. Which stadium hosted that year's Grand Final?
Wanderers.
Yep. Suresh Raina has played in a record 161 matches in the IPL. What team did he join when the Chennai Super Kings were given a 2-year ban for alleged involvement in betting irregularities?
Gujarat Lions.
Yep. Which Australian bowler took 4 wickets for 13 runs when the Chennai Super Kings beat the Deccan Chargers in the semi-finals in 2010?
Doug Bollinger.
Yep. The Purple Cap is an annual award presented to the leading wicket taker. What colour cap is awarded to the leading run scorer?
Orange.
Yep. Which English specialist 2020 bowler did the Royal Challengers Bangalore buy for the sterling equivalent of £1.4 million at auction in 2017?
Chris Jordan.
Tamal Mills. In which city is the Sawai Man Singh Stadium, the principal home ground used by the Rajasthan Royals?
Jaipur.
Correct. Which franchise signed the Zimbabwean wicketkeeper batsman Tatenda Taibu in 2008?
Kolkata Knight Riders.
Yep. Who was the only non-Indian player appointed as the squad captain of a team in the opening season in 2008?
Shane Warne.
Correct. Which country hosted the first 20 matches of the 2014 tournament at 3 different stadia before it returned to India?
United Arab Emirates.
Correct. Who scored the first century in an IPL final for the Kings 11 Punjab against the Kolkata Knight Riders in 2014, even though he finished on the losing team?
Vardhaman Saha.
Yes. Mustafizur Rahman is the only non-Indian cricketer to have won the Emerging Player of the Year award. What's his nationality?
Bangladesh.
Correct. What unusual method of dismissal ended Yusuf Pathan's innings of 72 against the Pune Warriors at Ranchi in May 2013?
Obstructing the field.
Is correct. And you can have scored 13 points. And our final finalist, please. And your name is?
Alfred Williams.
Your occupation?
Assistant Curator.
And your specialist subject?
Hadrian's Wall. We're just outside Hexham in Northumberland at Vercovicium, or Housesteads to its friends, which is one of the major Roman forts along the line of Hadrian's Wall. I first came here, must be about 15 years ago, when I was walking the length of the wall with my friend Russell, and it's lovely to be back. Hadrian came to power in AD 117 when Trajan died, and the empire was at its biggest. Hadrian wasn't a conqueror in the same mould. He abandoned some of the conquests in the east and consolidated the frontiers in other parts of the empire, and in Britain, that is where the wall came in. It's particularly exciting to be at Vindolanda. It's the last day on site for what's been a really great season of digs for the archaeologists here.
Hi there.
Hello.
Nice to meet you. Welcome to Vindolanda.
As someone who's fascinated by Roman archaeology, it's really great to be able to get in amongst such an important and significant dig.
So here it comes, a coin of Hadrian. It's a silver denarius. So there it is.
Yeah.
You can still see the writing all around it.
Yeah. So it's a coin from the period when when the wall was being built.
Absolutely.
Which is pretty
and
cool.
you can admire Hadrian in all his bearded beauty. He was the first emperor in a while to spot a beard.
Absolutely.
There he goes.
Fine looking man.
Beautiful.
So being here really brings home how much of a statement in the landscape the wall was, and it must have been pretty extraordinary for the native Brits living this side of it to look up here at one of these forts and know inside there's 1,000 soldiers from the most successful army in the world ready to pour forth an attack at any moment. It must have been a pretty intimidating prospect. Mastermind is the big daddy of quizzes, and it's pretty cool just to have got to the final, but to actually win it would be fantastic.
Hadrian's Wall in 2 minutes, starting now. What year is usually given as the date that Emperor Hadrian visited Britain and decided to build a wall that would mark the northern limit of the Roman Empire?
122.
Yep. Who was the governor of Britain at the time of Hadrian's arrival in the country, and during whose period in office the wall was built?
Praetorius Nepos.
Correct. 3 Roman legions formed the main building force of the wall. They were the 2nd Augusta, the 6th Victrix, and which other legion based at Chester?
20th Valeria Victrix.
Yes. What was Hadrian's clan or family name? It's part of the name of the fort built on the wall in what's now Newcastle on Tyne.
Aelius.
Yep. At what point between mile castles 40 and 41 does the wall reach its highest point of 345 metres above sea level?
Windshields.
Yep. What is the name of the great earthwork that ran along most of the length of the south side of the wall and consisted of a ditch with earth mounds on either side?
The vallum.
Yep. Which 5th century document that records the distribution of officials throughout the Roman world includes details of military posts along the wall?
Notitia Dignitatum.
Correct. A 4th century biographer of Hadrian records that he was the first to build a wall to separate the Romans from the barbarians. How many miles long does he say the wall is?
70.
80. What was the name of the prestigious cavalry unit that was garrisoned at the Fort Uxellodunum, or Stanix, near the centre of Carlisle?
The first Petriana.
Yes. What name is usually given to the towers used as lookout posts, 2 of which were placed between each pair of mile castles?
The towers.
Turrets. What name is given to the point at mile castle 30 on Templemore Hill, where the wall reaches its northernmost point?
Limestone Corner.
Yes. What is the name of the Elizabethan historian who gave one of the earliest accounts of the wall in his work Britannia?
Camden.
Yep. Who became emperor in 138 and built a turf wall from the Clyde to the Forth? It was abandoned after some 20 years, and Hadrian's Wall again marked the northern limit on the empire.
Antoninus Pius.
Yes. What is the name of Mile Castle 49, which was at the eastern end of the original turf wall that extended west to Bowness-on-Solway?
Harrow's Scar.
Yes. What is the name of the dolerite outcrop that much of the central portion of the wall is built along?
The Windsill.
Correct. Who was the 19th century town clerk of Newcastle on Tyne who played a leading role in the excavation and conservation of the fort at Chesters and other sites along the wall?
John Clayton.
John Clayton is correct. No passes, Alfred. You have scored 14 points. Well, a very high-scoring first round there, as you would expect from our grand finalists. Let's have a look at all of the scores. In 6th place with 11 points, Ben. Joint 3rd place, 13 points apiece, Brian, Kyle and Ken. Joint 1st place, 14 points apiece, Michael and Alfred. So, all those months of hard work come down to this, general knowledge. 2.5 minutes of questions each that will decide who is the nation's mastermind. And if there's a tie at the end of it, then the number of passes is taken into account and the person with the fewer passes is the winner. If they're tied on passes as well, there has to be a tie break. So let us get on with it and ask Ben to join us again, please. Right, you start out with 11 points, Ben. 2.5 minutes, of course, for this general knowledge round, and there's nothing in it as we speak. Let's see how you do. Here we go. Which people of Polynesian origin are indigenous to New Zealand?
Maui.
Yep. Perry Edwards, Jessie Nelson, Leanne Pinnock and Jade Thirlwell are founder members of the first group to win the X Factor in 2011. What's the group's name?
Pass.
Pasta alla norma, made with aubergines, tomato sauce and ricotta cheese, is a traditional dish from which Italian island?
Sicily.
Yep. In what 2016 film does Ryan Reynolds play a former Special Forces operative turned mercenary who participates in secret experimental procedures which leave him with accelerated self-healing powers?
Deadpool.
Yep. In January 2017, Michelle O'Neill was appointed the leader of which political party in Northern Ireland?
The DUP.
No, Sinn Féin. Which statesman was Viceroy of India from 1898 to 1905 and Foreign Secretary from 1919 to 1924? While he was at Oxford, he wrote a satirical verse describing himself as a most superior person.
Grey.
Curzon. What does the word pont mean in Welsh place names such as Pontypridd and Pontypool?
Bridge.
Yes. Of what queen, a celebrated beauty, did Blaise Pascal say, had her nose been shorter, the whole face of the world would have changed?
Cleopatra.
Yes. The cast of which Verdi opera includes Zachariah, the high priest of the Hebrews, a slave called Abigail, and the king of Babylon?
Turandot.
Nabucco. Which city hosted the 1904 Olympic Games as part of a world fair to celebrate the centenary of the Louisiana Purchase?
Paris.
No, St. Louis. The 17th century Dutch Baroque painters Nicolas Maas and Karel Fabricius were among the pupils of which great artist?
Rembrandt.
Yes. Who plays Peter Kay's passenger, Kaylee Kitson, in the television series Car Share?
Jones.
Sean Gibson. What word that comes from the Greek for of the right opinion is used to designate many of the churches of Eastern Christendom and a traditional form of Judaism?
Orthodox.
Yes. Which Rolling Stone has written a children's book in praise of being a grandparent called Gus and Me, the story of my granddad and my first guitar?
Keith Richards.
Yes. What process in photography comes after developing the film and makes the image permanent?
Pass.
Which Scottish author, whose works include the Tony Hill and Carol Jordan series of crime novels, has a stand named after her father at her hometown football club of Wraith Rovers?
McDermott.
Yes, Val McDermott. What is the name of the town where the Potomac and Shenandoah rivers meet? It was the scene of a famous raid in the build-up to the American Civil War.
Harper's Ferry.
Correct. Mary Ann Evans, who was born in Chilvers Cotton in Warwickshire in 1819, is better known by what pen name?
George Eliot.
Yes. Phalis sylvestris is the scientific name of a native British mammal now mainly confined to the Scottish Highlands. Which animal?
The red squirrel.
No, the wild cat. Yeah. 2 passes. That process in photography that comes after you develop the film and makes the image permanent is called fixing.
Oh.
Yeah. And Perry Edwards, Jessie Norman, etc. The group's name was Little Mix.
Ah.
Aha. Ben, you have a total of 22 points.
Thank you.
And now Brian again, please. And Brian, you start out with 13 points. At the moment, the score to beat is 22, as you have just heard. Let's see how you do in your 2.5 minutes of general knowledge, starting now. The sleeve of the 1969 album Abbey Road pictures which group crossing the road?
The Beatles.
Yep. What French word for a thick soup is closely related to the term for the stew that a hungry Esau is said to have sold his birthright for in the Old Testament?
Potage.
Yep. On what river was the controversial Three Gorges Dam completed in 2006? It's part of the world's largest hydroelectric project.
Yangtze.
Yep. Who set Goethe's Gretchen at the spinning wheel to music in 1814? It's considered to be a masterpiece of German art song or lieder.
Schubert.
Yep. What was the name of the traditional county whose county town was Appleby? It became part of Cumbria in 1974.
Westmoreland.
Yes. What name that comes from the Greek for all the earth was given to the supercontinent that once incorporated most of the Earth's land masses?
Pangaea.
Yes. Who used to sign himself former naval person in his correspondence with Franklin D. Roosevelt during the Second World War?
Churchill.
Yep. In the 1930 film Anna Christie, whose first spoken words on screen were "Give me a whiskey, ginger ale on the side and don't be stingy, baby."
Greta Garbo.
Correct. Which song, co-written and performed by John Denver, opens with the words Almost Heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountain, Shenandoah River.
Country Roads?
Yes. What work by Ernest Hemingway, first published in 1932, tells of his passion for bullfighting?
Fiesta.
Death in the Afternoon. The king of which Southeast Asian country lives in the Chitlada Palace?
Thailand?
Yes. In which daytime television series the blue and red teams given £300 and 1 hour in which to buy antiques they try to sell at auction for a profit?
Bargain hunt.
Yep. What legal term that literally means under penalty refers to a writ that compels a person to appear in a court of law?
Subpoena.
Yes. The same club was beaten in the final of the European Champions League by Manchester United in 1999 and by Chelsea in 2012. Which club?
Bayern Munich.
Yes. A long barrow near the Uffington White Horse on the Ridgeway in Oxfordshire is known by the name of which mythical blacksmith?
Wayland Smith.
Yes. Who represented the Respect Party in Parliament as MP for Bethnal Green and Bow from 2005 to 2010 and for Bradford West from 2012 to 2015?
George Galloway.
Correct. Which poet, who was born with a twisted right foot, wrote the poetic drama The Deformed Transformed that was unfinished at the time of his death in 1824?
Byron.
Correct. What plant-like aquatic organism has many forms, including green, blue, green and red, and is often seen floating on stagnant water? Its name comes from the Latin for seaweed.
Algae.
Yes. What word for a decorative marking of the skin made by puncturing it and inserting colourings comes from Polynesian languages such as Tahitian?
Tattoo.
Yep. Which form of transport was used by Prunella Scales and Timothy West in a series of television travelogues starting in 2014?
Canal boat?
Is correct. Brian, you have a score of 32. And now Kyle again, please. And Kyle, you start out with 13. I hardly need to tell you that the score to beat has rather shot up. It is now 32. So, here we go. 2.5 minutes of general knowledge, starting now. What name is given to the narrow two-pronged steel bar used to check the pitch of a musical instrument?
Tuning fork.
Yep. Which three-day cycle race was first held in 2015 as a legacy of the visit of the Tour de France to Britain, 2014?
Tour of Britain.
Tour de Yorkshire. Which European country has had 3 kings called Leopold and 2 called Albert?
Sweden.
Belgium. What name of Greek origin is given to the 2-handled jar used in ancient times to hold liquids, especially oil or wine?
Pass.
Who is the youthful narrator of Robert Louis Stevenson's novel Treasure Island?
Hawkins.
Yep. In the opening chapter of the book of Revelation in the New Testament, the author is mentioned 3 times. What's his name?
John.
Yep. Which 17th century Spanish painter's works include The Surrender of Breda and Pope Innocent X, considered to be a masterpiece of portraiture?
Velasquez.
Yes. Which Welsh-born actor won an Oscar for his performance as an alcoholic writer in the 1945 film The Lost Weekend?
Raymond Land.
Yes. In 1854, the heir of a wealthy Hampshire family vanished while travelling, and later an Australian butcher claimed to be the missing man, leading to a famous Victorian fraud case. What was the family's name?
Pass.
In Mademoiselle Guillotine, published in 1940s, the last in a series of novels which featured an English hero of the French Revolution. Who was he?
Scarlet Pimpernel.
Yes. The pianist Alfred Brendel is especially known for his interpretations of the works of which German composer?
Wagner.
Beethoven. What initials on French wine labels guarantee that the wine was produced in the region specified?
DOC.
AC, or AOC. Miranda, Ariel, Umbriel, Titania and Oberon are the 5 major satellites of which planet?
Uranus.
Yes. In which city suburbs is the Teufelsberg, or Devil's Mountain, a hill over 100 metres high, made from the rubble left by Second World War bombing and now used as a recreation area?
Dresden.
Berlin. Which religious order was founded at the Abbey of Monte Cassino by a 6th century saint? They're nicknamed the Black Monks.
Franciscans.
Benedictines. On what headland in North Somerset was initial agreement given to the construction of a new nuclear power station in October 2013?
Dungeness.
Hinkley Point. Which playwright set a number of his television dramas in the Forest of Dean, where he was born in 1935 and where his father and grandfather had worked as miners?
Pass.
The works of which Catalan surrealist painter and sculptor include the wall decorations Mur de Soleil and Mur de Lune for the UNESCO building in Paris, completed in the 1950s?
Miro.
Yes. Which former oil company executive with no experience of public office did Donald Trump appoint as his Secretary of State when he took office as President in January 2017?
Tillington.
Rex Tillerson. You had 3 passes. Dennis Potter. was the playwright who set many dramas in the Forest of Dean. The family's name in that very famous fraud case was Tichborne, and the Greek vessel, the two-handled jar, is... an amphora. You knew it all the time, didn't you? It's the pressure. Kyle, you have a total now of 21 points. And now Ken again, please. And Ken, you also start out with 13 points. You also have to get 32 or more for a chance of the title. So, 2.5 minutes, here we go. Which free online encyclopedia was launched by Larry Sanger and the former bond trader Jimmy Wales in January 2001?
Wikipedia.
Yep. Northern Ireland traditionally comprised how many counties?
13.
6. What term, specially associated with the territory between the two entrenched armies in the First World War, originally referred to land that lay beyond London city walls?
No man's land.
Yes. Which singer, whose real name is Florian Claude Bonavial Armstrong, had her first UK top 10 hit single in 2001 with Here With Me?
Dido.
Yep. What flavour liqueur is added to gin, lemon juice and sometimes egg white in a white lady cocktail?
Peach.
Orange. The 100 Years' War with France began during the reign of which English king?
Edward III.
Yep. Who declined the post of Poet Laureate when he was offered it on the death of Colley Cibber in 1757?
Pass.
The silent film producer, director and creator of The Keystone Cops was born Michael Sinnott in Quebec province in 1880. By what name is he better known?
Buster Keaton.
Max Sennett, who became the first tennis player to have beaten both the Williams sisters in a Grand Slam singles final when she beat Venus at Wimbledon in 2017.
Pass.
What rank comes between captain and lieutenant colonel in the British Army?
Major.
Yep. The system that reduced hiss on magnetic tape and was installed in most cassette players was named after which American engineer?
Dolby.
Yep. Which novel by Margaret Atwood is set in a dystopian future in the Christian fundamentalist state of Gilead, where the few remaining fertile women must bear children for the ruling elite?
The Handmaid's Tale.
Yes. Who wrote the television series Last Tango in Halifax and Happy Valley? They're both set in her native county of Yorkshire.
Pass.
Which 19th century Bedfordshire nurseryman became famous for the number of new varieties of fruits he produced, particularly apples? The Superb was the best known.
Pass.
The National Museum of Dutch Art, the Rijksmuseum, is in which city?
Amsterdam.
Yep. Which of the principal gods of Norse mythology sacrificed one of his eyes in exchange for wisdom?
Odin.
Yes. Who appeared as a solo violinist with the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra at the age of 7 in 1923? He went on to become one of the 20th century's most celebrated violinists.
Yehudi Menuhin.
Yes. Which mountainous island in the South Atlantic forms part of a British overseas territory with the South Sandwich Islands?
South Georgia.
Yes. Who resigned from the Shadow Cabinet in 2014 after she tweeted a picture of a house adorned with St George's flags with a white van outside? In 2016, Jeremy Corbyn appointed her Shadow Foreign Secretary.
Diane Abbott.
Emily Thornberry. Which Italian architect is the head of the company whose works include the London skyscraper known as the Shard and the Pompidou Centre in Paris that he designed with Richard Rogers?
OK, can't remember.
Oh, I'll tell you in that case.
Thank you.
Renzo Piano. And your other pass is Thomas Laxton was that 19th century nurseryman who became famous for all those different fruits. Sally Wainwright wrote Last Tango in Halifax and Happy Valley. Garbin Muguruza was the tennis player who beat both the Williams sisters, and Thomas Gray decided he did not want to be Poet Laureate, and you know it now.
I read it yesterday.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Anyway, Ken, by normal standards, you did very well. You have a total of 24 points.
Thank you.
And now, Michael, again, please. And, Michael, you start out with 14 points, which gives you a slight advantage. However, 32 is still the score to beat. Here we go. The islands of the Maldives lie in which ocean?
The Pacific.
Indian. What imperial measurement is equal to approximately 4.546 litres?
A gallon.
Yep. Colford, Cinderford and Lydney are the principal settlements in which woodland area that lies between the rivers Severn and Wye?
The Cotswolds.
Forest of Dean. What term for the ability to act or speak in an appropriate manner in social situations comes from the French for knowledge and to do?
Savoir-faire.
Yes. By what name are the long cylindrical grissini served in many Italian restaurants commonly known in Britain?
Breadsticks.
Yes. The 2017 film The Last Night is the 5th instalment of which film franchise?
Pass.
Which harmful bacterium, sometimes found in foods such as processed meats and soft cheeses, is named after a 19th century English surgeon and pioneer in preventative medicine?
Listeria?
Yep. Which music venue in Liverpool was named by its owner, Alan Sitner, after the Parisian jazz venue Le Caveau de la Huchette?
The Cavern Club.
Yep. In June 1743, at the Battle of Dettingen, who was the last British king to lead his forces into war?
George II.
Correct. What is the name of the bully in Tom Brown's School Days, who later features in a series of novels by George MacDonald Fraser?
Flashman.
Yep. The 18th century English artists Thomas Girtin, John Sell Cotman and John Robert Cousins are famous for their works in what paint medium?
Watercolours.
Yes. Who reprised his role as the FBI Special Agent Dale Cooper when Twin Peaks returned to television screens in 2017?
Kyle MacLachlan.
Yes. What flower is said to have been created when Aphrodite sprinkled her nectar on the blood of the dying Adonis in Ovid's version of the legend of Aphrodite and Adonis?
The rose.
Anemone. Which Olympic sport is governed by the Fédération Internationale de Tir à l'Arc, generally known by the acronym FITA?
Triathlon.
Archery. Whose song, Castle on the Hill, that debuted at number 2 in the UK singles charts in January 2017, was inspired by Framlingham Castle, which overlooks the Suffolk town where he grew up?
Ed Sheeran.
Yep. Which British overseas territory in the South Atlantic was sighted by the Portuguese in 1501 and named after the feast day when it was rediscovered in 1503?
St Helena.
Ascension Island, whose report on social insurance and allied services, published in November 1942, provided the basis for the creation of the welfare state?
Beveridge.
Correct. Which Hungarian-born composer and pianist went on to take minor orders in the Catholic Church as an abbé?
Liszt.
Yes. What's the name of the 19th century Russian dramatist and novelist whose principal works include the play The Government Inspector and the short story The Overcoat?
Gogol.
Yes. And you have one pass. That 2017 film, The Last Night, is the 5th instalment of the Transformers. Another very good score, but not enough, I'm afraid. 27 points. And finally, Alfred, please, again. And I don't want to put too much pressure on you, Alfred, but I suspect it's already there, isn't it?
A little bit.
14 points, 32. Still the score to beat. You're the last man with a chance of doing it.
Yeah.
Here we go. Peebo, Pish, Tush and Yum Yum are characters in which Gilbert and Sullivan operetta set in the Far East?
Mikado.
Yep. The first published use of the phrase natural selection was in 1859 in which book?
Origin of Species.
Yes. What competition did Nadia Hussain win in 2015? It launched her television career.
Great British Bake Off.
Yes. What is the name of Britain's first national park? It was established in 1951 and lies mainly in Derbyshire, although parts extend into neighbouring counties.
Peak District.
Yes. Which business entrepreneur is played by Ashton Kutcher in a 2013 biopic?
Pass.
Which pianist, one of the most influential musicians in jazz history, played with Louis Armstrong in both the 1920s and 40s and was nicknamed Father?
Earl Hines.
Yes. Who told a crowd at the Mason Temple Church in Memphis on the 3rd of April 1968, the night before he was murdered, "I have seen the promised land"?
Martin Luther King.
Yes. What nickname did the Soviet Defense Ministry newspaper Red Star give Margaret Thatcher after she made a scathing attack on the Soviet Union in a speech in January 1976?
Iron Lady.
Yes. Members of which religion referred to it as Gurmat, a Punjabi word that means the teaching of the gurus?
Sikhism.
Yes. Who wrote the 2001 fantasy novel American Gods, about the clash between the gods of ancient religions and the new gods of materialism, which was adapted for television in 2017?
Neil Gaiman.
Yes. The name of a wild plant, also known as the cuckoo flower, because it supposedly blooms when the cuckoo is first heard in spring, comes from the apparent resemblance of its flowers to Tudor women's clothing. Which plant?
Mandrake.
The lady's smock. The subjects of a prominent 18th century Scottish portrait painter include David Hume, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Queen Charlotte and George III. Who was the painter?
Pass.
The name of a preserve made from citrus fruits, especially oranges, comes from the Portuguese for quince, from which it was originally made. What preserve?
Marmalade.
Correct. Which ship, famous for its role at the Battle of Trafalgar, is also the flagship of the First Sea Lord and is in dry dock in Portsmouth?
Victory.
Yes. Who became only the fourth team to retain rugby's European Champions Cup when they beat Clermont-Auvergne 28-17 in the final at Murrayfield in May 2017?
Leicester.
Saracens, whose last diary entry, dated the 29th of March 1912, ends with a message, for God's sake, look after our people.
Captain Scott.
Yes. Sarawak, Sabah and Selangor are among the states of which Asian country?
Malaysia.
Correct. What colloquial term for a sailor is often said to come from the waterproof material historically used for his hat and other clothing?
Tar.
Yes. Which Czech composer's Symphony No. 1 is called The Bells of Zlonica?
Janacek.
Dvořák. Who began writing a series of semi-autobiographical literary sketches called The Uncommercial Traveller in January 1860? They consist of childhood memories and social commentary about London life.
Dickens.
It was indeed Dickens. And you had a couple of passes. The painter of those prominent portraits, David Hume, etc., was Alan Ramsay. And the business entrepreneur, you'll be so cross about this one, was Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wouldn't have made any difference, because, Alfred, you have 29 points. Well, what a round. What phenomenal scoring. Let's have a look at all of them. In sixth place, 21 points, Kyle. Fifth place, 22 points, Ben. Fourth place, 24 points, Ken. Third place, 27 points, Michael. Second place, 29 points, Alfred. First place, with an amazing 32 points, Brian. Brian. Congratulations.
Ooh, it's heavy, isn't it? Thank you very much.
And I think they approved. You looked absolutely stunned.
Yes. I'm totally amazed. Yeah, I don't know how I could have got 32. I don't know.
Well, I can tell you how by getting them all right.
Well, yeah, I know. Yes.
Anyway, that was a fantastic performance. Congratulations.
Yeah, right.
But now the search begins for the next Mastermind champion. And if you think it might be you, then visit us online at bbc.co.uk/mastermind, or you can follow us at Mastermind Quiz. And do join us again for more Masterminds. Thanks for watching. Goodbye. Right.